that sounds like this, man. Dude, thank you so much, my man. Absolute blast. What's up, guys? Javier from That Racing Channel. We have an awesome episode in store for you today. Today we're visiting Jack Cecil over at HP Logic. We're checking out his 1993 3-rotor RX7. This thing is just rotary heaven right here. This 3-rotor turns 10,000 RPM and makes over 400 wheel horsepower naturally aspirated. This thing is wild. Let's take a look. Since last we saw it, I think he updated the wheels here. And boy, do those look good. I'm not always a huge fan of white wheels on cars, but man, for this car specifically, it is just right. What's up, Jack?
What up,
Good
dude?
to see you, my man.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, this thing sounds insane.
You made it. Finally, you made it here. It's your turn to go for a ride.
It is my turn, and I'm super stoked, man. I want to say we featured this thing probably 2 or 3 times. It must have been, and every single time I couldn't make it, and I was so bummed. So I'm so happy I'm going to be able to go for a ride, man. Jeez. Oh my God. Would you just listen to that thing? God, that's just rotary heaven at RPM. I cannot wait for it, man. That's the best thing about these rotaries. It's so easy for them to turn so much RPM. This is gonna be my first ride in a 3-rotor RX7. I'm super stoked. All right, let's see under this hood, man. Wow.
Something.
Dude, this thing is awesome. Believe it or not, you're about to pop my 3-rotor cherry here.
NA 3-rotor is a unique experience. It's, you know, there's tons of turbo 3-rotors out there. The NA 3-rotor is kind of a science though, because you have to make it work in order to make that power. It's not like a turbo car where you just keep pumping boosted fuel into it. The ports, everything has to be done really, really precisely in order to make any power at all. Otherwise, you know, you might as well just chop the housings in half if you start messing with it when you don't know what you do. So this has got peripheral ports as well as the original ports. So we're using multiple porting. They call it a semi-peripheral port, and that allows for a ton of air to get introduced at high RPM. So down low or at lower throttle movements, we're not really using those peripheral ports. And then once we get up into the higher revs and a lot of throttle, they open up. So it's kind of like a sequential port that opens. And then that gives us that top end rip. I'm fascinated by the sound these things make. This header is a equal length header that was designed for this setup. This whole motor was built by Logan Carswell from Defined Auto Works, and he does some amazing stuff. He worked real closely with some of the actual Mazda race engineers and stuff, so he knows some of the tips and tricks to make these things work. And one of those is actually still here too, that I'm not using right now, but if you look, this has a 3rd spark plug, which is pretty cool. Instead of the typical 2, it has a 3rd set of spark plugs as well. I'm not using them right now, but it is an interesting feature that he had implemented on this motor to get a little bit extra power out of it. So I'd have to add another set of coils for it and stuff like that. But
That's wild stuff, man.
it's there.
Hey, you always got to leave a little bit of room for more.
Yeah, we'll keep on going.
Let's go for a spin, man.
Let's do it.
This thing just cruising already sounds so good. Dude, I could listen to that all day long.
Nice, right?
So nice, man. So what RPM is that turning? Just like 5,000-6,000 or something?
Yeah, it's like 4,000 or 5,000 just cruising there.
Wow, man. It screams more than most cars at 4,000 or 5,000 RPM.
Yeah, it really goes wild when we get up in the revs.
Quick fuel stop, and we're gonna go rip it around. What do we got here?
Premix.
2-cycle premix.
Yeah.
Good to go.
Good to go.
Fuel pit stop complete. God, this thing sounds so good, dude. Oh my God. The sweet sounds this thing makes, man.
It's wild, right?
It is just sounds like just like a pure, just like high revving like motorcycle or something. I don't know. It's like nothing I've ever heard or experienced. Like
It's different.
I don't know if there's anything else that sounds like this, man.
I don't think so. Almost like a snowmobile or something.
Woo! Yes. And this thing has brakes. That dude was grilling us. He was like, "What the f is that thing? An angry hornet's nest or something?" You know, like. I'm gonna say my first 3-rotor experience is absolutely TRC approved, without a doubt, man.
Boom!
Like, I've seen so many videos of them and played around with footage of this car so many times. Man, to actually experience the sound is just like nothing else, man.
Yeah. Not the fastest thing in the world, just has enough for what it is.
Right.
You gotta remember, it's a circuit car, so.
Oh, this thing around a road course?
Yeah.
Forget about it, dude.
That's the idea.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not the fastest thing in the world when it comes to straight line racing, but honestly, the experience, the sound, and the way this thing is just on rails trumps that any straight line performance you could ever want, you know? And then if you start making too much power, then it won't be well balanced, you know?
No, not only that, it won't be reliable either.
Right.
You know, that's the whole thing. This thing has to go around a track for hours. That's the idea, to create something that can just keep going and keep going and keep going. And at the end of the day, it's gonna still take you home.
Dude, I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, man.
I'm doubling it up here with the camera, so
Oh, okay, I see.
elbow bump. Thank you so much, my man.
Anytime.
Absolute blast.
Anytime, Javier.
All right, guys, so this is Brandon, one of our videographers. How's it going, man? So, as a previous RX7 owner yourself, I heard you're pretty stoked to ride in this thing.
Definitely. It's like a dream come true.
You've been watching this thing for years, apparently, huh?
Yeah, for sure. I've always wanted to do a build just like this, naturally aspirated 3-rotor. It's insane.
Hell yeah, man. Well, it's definitely a wild ride. You're in for some fun, man.
For sure.
You ready?
That is crazy.
You ready? What do you think?
That is insane, dude. That is insane. Goosebumps, bro. Goosebumps.
All right, so they're probably at least like half a mile away, and we just heard the RX-7 ripping it. Dude, that thing is wild, bro. What do you think about that?
I mean, it sounds like a motorcycle from here. I didn't even think it was RX-7.
What do you think about that, TJ?
That shit was crazy. That sounds amazing.
Goosebumps, bro. Goosebumps. That's crazy.
I see nothing but smiles from you.
Crazy, bro. Crazy. That's like life-changing.
That's the word I look for.
Life-changing.
It can be super fast, but if it's not life-changing.
Give the guys a little shot of the interior here.
This is an updated interior from the last time you guys saw it.
What changed?
Added the race pack, so we've got a different tachometer. I got rid of the old school Apex tack and put the race pack in, wired it all in so we have all of our gauging here. I wish I could use the new one, but I have to get a haul tech for that, and unfortunately, I don't know, it's not bad. This has the electromotive Tech 3R, so it's a decent ECU, but. I'm Jack Cecil, this is Horsepower Logic, and this is my beloved 1993 Mazda RX-7 with a 3-rotor, so it's a little bit different than the rest. This is obviously an NA20B. The motor itself is a masterpiece. It has a really nice high-end build in it. It's not a normal just throw
rotors in it and put it together with stock stuff. It has ceramic apex seals. It has upgraded oiling system. It has all of the internal modifications necessary to maintain oil pressure and keep things really happy at high RPM. Everything is lightened, scalloped, balanced very, very closely. Carlos Lopez did that balancing work on this. Polished. I mean, this thing internally looks like it should. The header is a custom built by Logan at Defined Auto Works. It's an equal length header that balances the pulses. So when you hear this thing at full song, it doesn't sound like a typical three rotor. You'll notice the three rotors have kind of an offbeat sound or a guttural sound, while this one has more of like a harmonic sound. And that's because of that equal length pulse that's happening there. The porting is a pretty aggressive street port. It's not a bridge port or anything like that for the main ports. And then it has the semi-peripheral ports as well, which we've added ITBs to introduce that extra air at a certain point. They're sequenced, so they don't come in at low end, they come in at high end. System has been upgraded obviously to accommodate for that as well. We have extra injectors on the ITBs as well as the bigger injectors. There are a set of 4 550s in the main slots with then an extra set of 550s on top of that. This whole system is being controlled by an Electromotive TEC3R. It's a little bit dated, but it works. It's with this system. Eventually I probably would like to upgrade that, but for now it does what it needs to do. It's talking to a Haltech race pack gauge, so we've got all of our information there. We added that to make sure that we have everything, get rid of that old school tachometer that was in there, so that helps with that. The suspension is a TN Trackmaster set, which is they're like basically their bigger end stuff. It's good for the circuit. It's a little bit aggressive for the street, but not a big deal in my opinion. It rides fine. The whole car is just an absolute noise box. So it's not necessarily the smoothest thing driving around in, which you guys have probably seen. Moving on to the brakes, we've got big Brembos all the way around, 2-piece rotors. The calipers are actually from a Cup Series car from back in the day. So the whole braking system is really, really strong. Once these brakes get hot, there's no stopping them. That was a pun. Sort of. I guess it stops a lot, but there's no stopping the brake system. It really works well. The wheels that we're using are the Regamasters, the Regamaster Evos. If you want to, you can see that this car, if you want to look at the JGTC cars of the era, they used that style of wheel, and I wanted to capture that somehow. So I was lucky enough to get this set of wheels from my buddy Chris. You guys might know him as Ricer Miata. He let me take these off of his Skyline. I put them on here. It's a perfect fit. They were actually made for the RX-7, so I'm very happy to have those.
I'm here with my boy Oscar, one of our TRC engineers here. So this is going to be his first ride in an RX-7. Man, it sounds incredible.
It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it sounds good.
No, it sounds amazing.
All right, ready?
Yep.
How was that, bro?
Yo, instant power, bro. Like, he's like, are you ready? And I'm like, whoa!
That was the first Rotary experience, right?
Yeah, first time.
First time and basically one of the finest gems when it comes to rotaries.
Not just a regular rotor, it's like a 3-rotor, 400 horsepower, break your neck type.
How's that sound at 10,000 RPM?
It's like, oh.
Does it remind you of your motorcycle?
Right?
Moving on to the chassis, the entire chassis has been reinforced. It's got a full cage in it that's NASA legal as well as SCCA. It's been through quite a few different rounds racing. This car actually, before it had this 20B, was a Skip Barber car in its previous life. and it had an LS swap in it at some point. So it's gone rotary, LS, back to rotary, but it's rotary forever, I promise you that at this point. The fuel system has been upgraded as well. It has bigger fuel pump. You don't need too much. The car's making around 400 horsepower at the flywheel and 350 at the wheel. So it's not a huge power demand for the fuel system, but it is upgraded enough to withstand further and go up to the 500 horsepower range if we ever have the need to do that, which I doubt at this point. Another part of the braking system is the Alcon master cylinders. It has twin master cylinders with titanium pistons, not power assisted. So it's a really hard, really grabby feeling when you're driving a car, but for racing, that's what you want. You get good modulation that way. Clutch is a 5-inch Mazda Speed twin disc, so it is visceral. It's aggressive. I don't even know how to describe it. It's on, off. Once you've figured out how to drive it, I guess it's okay, but even me knowing how to drive the car, it feels raunchy. That's the best way to put it. This whole car, experience-wise, is just undescribable. You just have to really feel it for yourself to understand. I hope it gets through in the videos. External-wise, I saved this bumper. The bumper was on the car. It was trashed. The front end of this, it had cracks everywhere. There was pitting everywhere. Rocks had made their way through it. Honestly, I was going to replace it with another bumper, but when I got the other bumper and fitted it up to the car, the quality of that bumper was no good. So we decided to get Tommy at Tizano's across the street here to redo this entire bumper, and he did the best job I've ever seen done resurrecting some trash. So we've got carbon that's been added to the front. A couple of carbon accents are on the bumper, and the paint was matched with the competition yellow mica that is in the rest of the car. You'll see the gray in the engine bay. That's to make leaks visible, and that's a common race car thing to be able to see if there's any fluids or anything different. It makes it a lot more visible that way. This car was really, like, I would call this my dream car. I got started in RX-7s. That was my first car. That was the car that got me going in the entire whole high performance thing. And something about the rotary engine just completely changed my thinking as far as like what cars were and what they meant. It was no longer just transportation. This is, a 15-year-old talking, 14-year-old talking. It was no longer transportation / a cool thing to just kind of have. It really turned into an embodiment of your passion and soul, because the rotary engine was so different. It just didn't make sense in a world of pistons. It was just completely off the wall. So RX-7s struck me, and my first build was an 87 RX-7 Turbo 2. That basically progressed to the point where I wanted every RX-7, and the FD, or third gen RX-7, was really the king of those. So after getting one and saving my money and getting that car and babying it, and I had it for 13 years, I realized that the motors were somewhat of a fragile nature through those years, and I lost a little bit of hope in the rotary engine towards the end of ownership of that car. I ended up swapping it, sadly, with an LS. Not even a year after I did that, I sold it, and it just was a testament to how much I had taken away from the car compared. I know I'm gonna offend some people out there, but the LS swap takes the RX out of the RX-7. I sold that car, and since then I wanted that rotary passion back. In the meantime, I had built a bunch of Skylines. You guys may have seen my black R34 GTT that was featured on TRC. I was browsing with my girlfriend one night. We were browsing Craigslist across the whole country, and she found this car. And this car was a ex-race car that had the 20B already in it. And it wasn't in the exact same condition as you see here, but it was loosely the same car. The car was in Ohio, and I had the R34 down here. As you guys know, ownership of gray market cars is a little bit sketchy, but in Florida it's not so difficult. Either way, I contacted the owner of this car up in Ohio, and he was interested in acquiring an R34. And I was definitely interested in acquiring this. So we came up to a deal, and I traded him. Shaw and I drove straight up to Ohio 2 days later, and we came back with this, and it didn't quite look like this. I got a picture, maybe I'll send it to you so you can see, but it didn't quite look like this. The front end was beat up really bad from racing. It had quite a bit of work that needed to be done cosmetically, and then under the hood I added a few other things. The guy who built this setup is a guy named Logan Carswell. He's got Defined Auto Works in Pataskala, Ohio. Shout out Logan. Really cool dude. He's doing things with rotary engines that no one else in this country really is. So that was really a surprise to me, and I was excited to not only find this car, but have a chance to go meet the guy who built it, talk to him about it, and we had made a couple of extra plans to continue modifying it. As you saw on the channel, we added the peripheral ports, which the motor had already been peripheral ported, but it had been blocked off for racing. And we added that, and just to get the power level up a little bit. The car is was a full track car build. It has a roll cage in it. It's got the big Brembos. It's got manual big Falcon master cylinders, the whole cooling system. Everything that was needed to be upgraded for circuit racing has been done. It's using an RX8 transmission, which a lot of people think are pretty fragile, which I guess by nature they should be, but this one's been pretty good. It's a 6-speed, and the beauty of this transmission is that it matches the power band of the motor. While an RX7 transmission will not want to shift at higher RPMs, this transmission is built to shift at that 9,000–10,000 RPM range. So it's a completely different experience with this transmission. The diff is also upgraded. It's got a limited slip that's OS Geiken, and it's able to handle that extra power as well on the track. I've kind of taken the car off the track, I guess is the best way to put it, because I'm not really too crazy about going racing. I don't have the money to really keep that up, but I do want to have the car, and I love this car for what it is, and I plan to enjoy it and keep it this way for as long as I can and drive it on the street. So we have quite a bit of experience with the JDM cars. We import them, we build them, and we move them along. That's really our focus, and we want to continue doing that. We don't limit ourselves though to the Japanese cars. We do quite a bit of domestic stuff as well, Corvettes and Mustangs and stuff like that. I've even started building a truck, not just a truck, a diesel truck, which I know, you've seen them before, but what I'm trying to do is kind of capture the essence of a pulling truck and throw it on the street, if that makes any sense. Keep your eyes open for that. The truck's called the Good Old Boy, and he really is a good old boy. It's a F-250 7.3 old grandpa truck. Doesn't look like it's very assuming, but she's got a little bit of grunt, or he does. So another one that a lot of people aren't really expecting when they see some of the stuff that we put out is it's not just cars, it's not just trucks, but scooters too. I have a motorcycle dyno. It's not, you guys can't see it right now, but I'm sure you can see some of the videos. I've taken a liking to some of the smaller stuff. I love the little scooters. There's a ton of potential, and they start at like 2 horsepower, and I've got one that's making 40 to the wheel with a little bit of help from nitrous. But you guys can see that scooter going up against a Hellcat, going up against a McLaren. I mean, it's not going to win, obviously, but it's there at the beginning. It's there. You can see it's hanging on for a little bit, at least at 0 to 60. But also electric bikes. I've taken off a little bit with those. You guys, maybe you haven't seen it. It's a little electric bike called a Suron. You should check it out. Did 90 miles an hour on it. It does like 40 stock. So that's another cool one. Electric stuff is awesome. You're going to see a lot more of that. Jet skis. Done some crazy little jet ski builds. I'm not the world's fastest, but I like to think that it's competitive. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to be doing some more jet ski stuff as well. So the scooters, the jet skis, the electric bikes, and I've got this weird thing that I put together. I want to call it a buggy, but it's a little smaller than a typical buggy. It's a little bit bigger than a typical side-by-side. So I don't know what category it really fits in, but for me, the fun category is definitely there. It's populating that, so check that out. The buggy it's made by a Chinese company. It's called a Renly. It's not really a typical buggy though, because it's a little smaller. It's a tube frame with an automotive style engine that's from a Chinese car called the QQ. It's a 1.1 liter. It's a good little motor actually. It's a very over square, good for turbo, so that's exactly what I did. Stock, the motor made 69 horsepower to the wheel. With the turbo at 7 PSI, it made 110. It's intercooled. I put a little bit of a fuel system on it, nothing too crazy. We upsized the injectors. Fuel Injector Clinic helped me out, shout out, Fuel Injector Clinic. Stock ECU, nothing crazy on it, but it runs pretty good. The beauty of the thing is it has a 5-speed manual transmission. It's a Volkswagen transmission. So you don't have to worry about a belt burning up or anything like that in a typical CVT transmission of side-by-side. It's got front and rear diff locks. It's 4x4 clearly. It has a power steering. I added power steering to it, electric power steering, which without the power steering, it's okay with the stock wheels, but we put 30-inch wheels on it with Maxxis ML3s, so it needed a little bit of help to kind of get that stuff around. But that extra meat in those tires helps this thing off-road really well. We go a lot of sand and mud type stuff around here. It's a go anywhere vehicle. It's got a little winch on it, an ATV winch on the front, light bar. Just a cool, I don't know what to call it, buggy. Really fun to drive, 0 to 60, I think like 6 seconds, somewhere in there. Nothing too crazy, but it gets the job done. A lot faster than it was stock, I'll tell you that. Not as fast as a lot of these crazy side-by-sides, but off-road ability, way up there.